Yeah, so just saying, I'm relatively new to this position. I've been in the position as the director for about 3 months now, so learning an awful lot each and every day. But I'm not new to the VR program. I've been working with the program for about 8 years as legal counsel. So I'm a lawyer by trade and represented VR and blind services for the better part of the last decade. So I'm very familiar with that side of the equation, and am now learning an awful lot about every other portion of the business. And just continue to learn every day about the vast array of services that we are able to provide to individuals with disabilities. And starting at the age of 14, which is a relatively new piece of VR and a new focus and point of emphasis that I personally am very excited about, and I'm happy to see this program both at the state and national level move in that direction. It just seems like really good common sense to me to begin working with folks earlier on, before they're even out of school, and expose them to a lot of different career opportunities, jobs that they may not have even been aware exist. And we'll talk about the tools that we're using to work with our youth, our students with disabilities, as part of our transition program. And I got to give a shout out to a bunch of our transition staff who are here with us today. How about a hand for these folks? They're doing great work with our students with disabilities. They presented this morning, and we've had team members presenting here all weekend, so hopefully some of you got a chance to meet with some of them. They're incredibly knowledgeable about the programs that they work for, and can help you with your particular situation, with you and your families and your loved ones, if you have questions about how to best access some of these services, because we know that can be a challenge. And so we want to be here for you, along with the counselors that you or your loved ones are working with, to really be that resource and get you connected to the services that you need. So again, newfound focus, or relatively new, on the transition age. That's come about since the passage of WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. It's a federal law that was passed back in 2014. And among other things, it directed us to place a greater emphasis on students with disabilities. So again, that's really something that we're emphasizing, and that I personally believe is going to be pay a lot of dividends for folks in the future. In fact, over half of our customers now are in that 14 to 21-year-old age group. So the services that I talked about for them, we call pre-employment transition services, or pre-ETS. You'll notice, if you haven't already, that we have an awful lot of acronyms, and I try to spell those out or avoid them as best I can, but a lot of times when we're talking to one another, it's just acronyms back and forth. So if I do that, please forgive me and just yell out at me and ask me what the heck I'm talking about. So pre-ETS, pre-employment transition services, consist of things like job coaching, work-based learning experiences, career counseling, some really good intensive activities for these students that, again, can get them exposed to career opportunities, career pathways, credential opportunities. And we'll talk more about credentials in just a few moments, because that's really something that we're renewing our focus on as well. So we work with the school districts all around the state, and we have service providers that we partner with to provide these services, also in every area of the state. So, so that is something that you can avail yourselves of right where you live, and particularly with these students through the school districts. So for example, this summer we're doing a number of career camps. And at those career camps, they're going to provide an array of these pre-employment transition services. And we've just been really fortunate with our career camp program. It's continued to grow and expand, and it's been very popular with our families and with our students with disabilities. So I encourage you all to learn more about the career camps, talk with our great staff here, and take advantage of those opportunities. So one of the performance measures that we are judged on by our federal partners is called measurable skill gains. And that's really kind of, I think, just like what it sounds like. It's a way for us to track and see how folks are doing in terms of attaining credentials, transcripts, diplomas, training milestones, et cetera, that sort of thing, so that there are concrete measures that we can see, okay, what kind of skills are we helping folks to achieve that will help them get high-paying, in-demand employment. I'm very pleased to say we exceeded our goal on measurable skill gains last year, and we're continuing to push that effort to really get those up there. An area that we're going to focus on even more is, as I mentioned, credentials. And that's sort of, I guess, related to measurable skill gains, but really its own category, in that there we're talking about, so obviously, again, transcripts or evidence of having graduated from an academic program, whether that's a college program or career and technical education, is something that I want us to continue to push harder on. And there's a wonderful program that Governor DeSantis started just a few years ago called Get There Florida. And it focuses on rapid credentialing and kind of accelerating getting some of these credentials, particularly in the area of career and technical education, so that for folks who college is not the right fit, we can help them to identify what kinds of these credentials might they be able to attain in a shorter time span in areas, in job areas that are high demand, and that we know from our labor statistics there are jobs available and employers looking for folks with these kinds of credentials. So that's something that we're continuing to ramp up, and we're really going to need to redouble our efforts in order to meet our goals and achieve those numbers that we're looking for. So a couple of statistics for you. We expect, I believe, to serve about 45,000 individuals overall in this program year. That's over the entire state. I think that's roughly consistent with where we've been over the past several years. Now, of course, the caveat is COVID, which slowed things down for everyone. And we're still, I think, feeling the effects of that in terms of our statistics and what we track. But I think, I'm hopeful anyway, that we see the light at the end of the tunnel, and that with some serious outreach and engagement and efforts like this to really connect with folks in the community, that we'll see those numbers starting to rise again, because we want to serve everyone that is in need of these services. And one of the things I've heard as I've been in my role for a few months here is that VR is the best kept secret. And I say, I don't want us to be a secret. We need to be shouting it from the rooftops. We want everyone to know about the work that we do. So help us spread the word and help us be no longer a secret to anyone. We want to be a household word. So that's great. In terms of competitive integrated employment outcomes, last year we assisted with over 5,000 successful employment outcomes, so we're very pleased with that. Of course, we can always increase that, and we're looking to do so every day. A couple of things about that statistic. It's a little bit to unpack there. Competitive, integrated employment, right? So competitive meaning not sub-minimum wage, a competitive wage. Integrated, of course, meaning integrated with folks with and without disabilities in the workforce, so not in a sheltered type of environment. So those are the kinds of employment outcomes that we require. We do not have plans for employment for individuals to make less than a competitive wage. So we're proud of that, and in fact, we're looking to assist other entities who have traditionally engaged in the sub-minimum wage practice to see if they can move towards assisting folks more with competitive integrated employment. We believe that's the right thing to do, and not to cast any aspersions on folks who have gone another model, and we certainly know that there is a time and place for folks to be provided different kinds of services than what we do, and some of our sister agencies, if you will, are able to do that. But it's important for us to keep our focus on employment. That is our mandate, and that is what we do. So competitive, integrated employment. Turning attention for just a second to the employer side of the equation, again, that's a relatively new focus for us. Well, it's been a number of years now, but I think candidly, not only in Florida, but across the nation, VR agencies have had some challenges with ramping up that side of the business. It's a new opportunity, but with that new opportunity comes challenges. So we have a great staff and a great business relations team headed up by Kathy Davis. We have business representatives throughout the state in each of our regions who work with employers and provide them services totally free of charge to help them understand how they can better employ individuals with disabilities, to teach them and dispel some of the myths and misconceptions about employing folks with disabilities. I think all of us here in this room know that people with disabilities are fantastic employees. They're loyal, they have fewer absences, they're just really an important and untapped resource and part of that talent pipeline that we talk about a lot in the workforce development field more broadly. So I'm excited about the fact that some of our partners outside of VR are starting to see that, and the light is starting to come on, that this is an untapped resource, and it's going to be really a win-win for employers and for our customers when we really fully get that mindset changed and have those employers saying, hey, you know what have we been doing? We got to do better, and we have a rich pool of employees here that we need to take advantage of. So we're seeing good movement on that. We're having more and more what we call repeat customers on the business side, where we've been able to connect them with our customers, our individuals who are seeking employment, and then they've come back and said, hey, we need more. This is working out for us. We want more employees. Can you please continue to hook us up? I met a gentleman with the company Pitney Bowes several weeks ago, and he was telling me just that story, that they had done so well in the Jacksonville area, and they were opening up a facility here in this region, and he was asking me, let's get together and let's see about getting some more people connected. So gosh, that made me so happy, and I want to keep experiencing that with a lot of our employers. And I know when they hear the story of the Pitney Bowes of the world, that they're gonna come around. So we just have to continue our efforts and really redouble those efforts to reach those employers. We've heard some real good, positive stories about Amazon moving forward in hiring folks with disabilities. So we're encouraged there as well as they continue to expand throughout Florida. But we also need to be thinking about the smaller businesses, which comprise the majority of the businesses in our great country. It's not all the Starbucks and the Amazons. It's really some of these, even down to sort of the mom and pop level businesses that I would like us to tap into. So I think that's going to be an area where we're going to continue to look at how can we reach that population of small businesses and get them just as engaged. So that's something that we're looking forward to in the future here. So I'll pause for just a moment. That's sort of the setting the table that I wanted to do, and I focused a lot on, again, the pre-employment piece because that's where a lot of our efforts are at the moment. But we do have, obviously we provide services from everyone age 14 and up. So for folks who are older, who have even been in a career or a job, and for whatever reason they need additional support and assistance to either maintain that job, or if they're looking to move up the career ladder. That is something that is right in our wheelhouse as well, and we are able to provide just about everything under the sun in terms of services, as long as it's tied to that agreed upon employment goal that we have with the individual. So that's kind of a fundamental piece of the work we do, is an individual comes in, they're determined eligible based on having a disability or disabilities that are impediments to them becoming employed or maintaining that employment. So we identify those. They've been determined eligible, and then the next step is for us to work with them to develop an individualized plan for employment, or here's another acronym, the IPE. And we use that one really regularly. Confusingly, it's not an IEP, but so a lot of times we have, both of those that we're juggling, but that's, of course, the individual education plan that we have for our students with disabilities. So IPE, Individualized Plan for Employment. Well, it's just like what it sounds like. It's not the same for me or you or her. It's individualized, and it's specific to that job goal that you have. Now, the job goal needs to be based in reality. I mean, we're not going to try to limit an individual's hopes and dreams in terms of their career, but we also need to be realistic and come up with a workable plan. And so what we do is work with the individual. If necessary, we'll have them work with a vocational evaluator to determine, okay, what are you interested in? What are your strengths? Where are you really stronger in a particular kind of skill that would lead to some sort of good employment? So there are a battery of kinds of tests and questions that are answered to come up with an evaluation that will lead us to a successful IPE, that plan for employment. So we get that signed. That details down to the letter the services that are to be provided and by whom. And so as part of that process, the individual gets to pick from a menu of available service providers in their area. And we call that informed choice. And again, so each one of these words, I think, has meaning that we need to pay attention to. It's informed because it's our obligation to help the individual to receive that information about these providers, exactly what it is that they can provide by way of services. And then the individual can pick and say, well, I like the fact that this provider is close to my home. I like that they do A, B, and C. They may have a hard time picking. They might say, but then again, I like this one over here. They're a little farther away, but I've heard great things about them, etc. So there's some choice involved there, and the individual gets to choose who is going to be best for them in their particular circumstances. Now, it's not to say that choice is set in stone. We know that sometimes, for various reasons, it doesn't work out with their first choice in a particular context, and so we're able to amend that plan to address that circumstance. If it turns out that things are going a little bit differently or we want to move in a different direction. So that IPE is a living document, but it says what the services are that are going to be provided, exactly how they're going to be paid for by VR, and who's going to be providing them. Now, there are obligations of the individual as well, okay? It's a two-way street, and so the individual has to be engaged and truly willing to be looking for employment or going through those services so that they can ultimately achieve that. So for example, if we're assisting an individual of whatever age with tuition, books, training, that sort of thing, which we do very frequently, the person's got to show that they're going to take it seriously, go to class, get the grades. You know, we're not expecting straight A pluses, but they've got to show a good faith effort to make those grades and that they're taking the training seriously. So those responsibilities are also laid out in the plan. And that plan is the guiding document for the entirety of that person's case. So it really is something that we look back to every time there's a question about how things are going to be going in a case. The counselors are really just the backbone and the most important, in my opinion, piece of the equation in order to help folks, because they're trained experts in the field of vocational rehabilitation. They know what it takes to help someone to reach a successful employment outcome. And so that relationship is critical. And they are the ones who will be interacting with the customer throughout the life of the case. So they'll work with them on that plan. They'll work with them to be sure that it's being implemented. They meet regularly, which is also another obligation and responsibility of the individual, to meet regularly with their counselor to communicate. Communication is key. In my previous role as lawyer for the division, when I saw that things had not gone well, it was inevitably because communication had broken down. For whatever reason, folks moving, counselors leaving the agency, you name it. But when that communication breaks down, things start to go poorly. And I think that's true of many things in our lives, right? We have to communicate, we have to understand one another and be on the same page. And sometimes it's like, no, let's go back to page such and such of the IPE. This is what we said. Let's refocus on that. So I find that to be the most important piece of that relationship, is that that communication is there. And I've heard, I think it was Brandy today, talk about the maybe one of the silver linings for us of COVID. And that is that we, I think, rethought our ways of communication and didn't so much be so rigid to say, nope, we can't talk this way, or we can't do business this way remotely. We have to meet in person. That's not always realistic for everyone, particularly with our folks in rural areas. There are challenges with getting together in person. And I think, while there's no substitute for it, and being here is a perfect example, you can't replicate this on a Zoom call, right? But it's sort of the next best thing, and it'll do in a pinch. If we need to get something done, it's another tool in our toolkit that we can work together remotely and really make some progress even when we're not able to be together face to face. So that is something that I'm encouraged by, that we have, I think, shown a little bit more flexibility in that area, and I think it's increasing satisfaction for our customers. So again, working through that plan, making sure each of those responsibilities are taken care of, checking in with the counselor as those milestones are hit so that we can be sure and capture those and measure those and show that we're having success. And then as the plan is developed and as the plan is implemented, we start to move towards that successful employment outcome. So it's typically, I guess I would say that it's so subject to change. When we first come up with that first employment goal, and I don't have a statistic on this, but it would be interesting to look at as to how frequently someone gets a job in that precise goal that they started out with. I would venture a guess that it's often very closely related, but maybe not exactly what the initial goal is. And that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, right? It took a lot of us a long time to know what we wanted to be when we grow up, right? I mean, I was in my 30s when I went to law school, so it was, you develop and you change your mind and you determine things that you like and that you didn't like about what it is that you were trying to accomplish. So there's certainly nothing wrong with that, and again, that's kind of built into the whole process here. So that's part of that amending. But I think we want to be mindful of not getting sort of to near the finish line and then in one area and then completely switching gears to another thing. You know, my personal philosophy is we need to say, well, let's work on something that's close to what we talked about. Maybe we tweak it slightly, and we get you something in this general area using the skills and the training that we have worked on together. And then if you determine after working in that field or that occupation a little while that you want to do something different, we can do that. But it's so important to get in that employment. We all know what it does to a person's self-esteem to have a job and to be earning some money and to be exposed to others in that competitive, integrated environment. It's just, there's no substitute for that. So I think getting into a job, even if it's not the A+ ideal fit, is the way to go in most cases. Let's get to work, and then let's see how we can tweak that and do even better. And that's something that we're permitted to do even more so since the passage of WIOA, is really help people who are already employed. They don't have to lose their job and come back to us. They can come to us while they're employed, but say, well, I want to do something a little different or better, or I need some further assistance to do this job that I'm in better. And so we've got some more flexibility on that front, which I think is a really great thing. An example that comes to mind on that is assistive technology. We frequently see that we get someone into a position and then for whatever reason, some sort of assistive technology might be something that's necessary for them to continue or to grow in that role. And so we have our partners at the University of South Florida who are here and who presented today, and I hope some of you all got a chance to see some of what they do, but they help us out an awful lot with some of our rehabilitation technology and assistive technology. Additionally, the FAST, Florida Association for Assistive Technology, is here today, and I got to speak with Whitney Doyle, their director, who's a fantastic individual, and I encourage you all to get to know her. But they do some really amazing things throughout the state with assistive technology as well. So that's kind of one example of something that I would think could occur when someone is already in employment but needs that extra little bit of assistance. So that's been an awful lot, and I haven't even scratched the surface of everything that we do. It is truly a remarkable program that changes lives, and that's why we're all happy to come to work every day, because we know that the work we're doing makes a lot of difference. Now, all that good stuff being said, we know that citizens' interactions with government agencies do not always go smoothly or exactly as folks plan. And so we have several measures in place to try to alleviate those times when it doesn't go just right. One of those that I'm most proud of is our Ombudsman Office. And I think that's pretty unique for Florida. I'm not aware of other states having anything quite like the way we do it here. They maintain sort of a quasi-independent status from us and really act as a bit of a watchdog for VR and as an advocate for individuals and families. And so that's the first question I always ask a family or an individual when they've come to me and they've had some challenges with VR is, have you talked to the Ombudsman? Because those folks are so darn helpful, and they know the business, they know the people, and they know who to talk to get the answers that you need. Sometimes a call from the Ombudsman is all that's needed to kind of quickly move things along. And, you know, the counselors want to be sure they're not getting too many of those calls from the Ombudsman, or maybe something's not going right with their counseling, right? So they are very cognizant of that and very willing to work with the Ombudsman as our partners and as a great resource for families and individuals. The second one that I'll plug, if things get a little, are really going south, is Disability Rights Florida, who provide client advocacy and assistance here in Florida to citizens in a large set of circumstances, not just VR, but in all kinds of disability-related circumstances. And so they are a great resource that I always encourage people to check out and to talk to. They have a wealth of knowledge about, again, not only VR, but every kind of disability-related issue. They have seen it, they have advocated, they have litigated, and I go back to my, again, lawyer experience and having worked with them, and I will say that we had great success with Disability Rights Florida in solving things before we had to go to court. I will say that was generally what both sides wanted to do. We're not looking to go get into an expensive and time-consuming fight before an administrative law judge. That is a last resort. And it is available, and it is a right that's built into the laws that govern our program. But again, it's a last resort. Nobody wants to go to court. They might think they do, but as it gets closer and closer to that date, people say, I don't want to do that. That's no fun. I don't want to go up there and be a witness. I don't want to be grilled by some lawyer. I don't want to have the judge asking me questions, and have a chance not to get what I want. What's better, and what I always recommend, is let's get in a room together and let's talk. Again, it's that communication. Maybe we haven't been on the same page. Maybe there have been misunderstandings. Let's see where we can have some flexibility and where we compromise. And I've heard, and this is, not formal mediation, which can be an option, but I like to try to solve it through an informal kind of mediation approach. That's my personal belief, is that most of these things can be solved that way. And one of the jokes that you hear from mediators is, if you walk out of here today and you're happy, then I haven't done my job. Because really, it's supposed to be a compromise. No one is going to be 100% happy with the outcome, but they're going to be pleased that the issue has been resolved. They've had their time to say their piece. They've been able to hear from the other side, and they've come up with a workable plan. Okay, and that is just, to me, such an important and an effective tool to get in a room together, and preferably face-to-face, as we were saying earlier. You can do all of this over Zoom or Teams or whatever, but really being there with the people and having that human connection, I think, makes a lot of difference. So those are some tools that we have for when things don't go well, and they can get things back on track so that we can get back to the important business of getting the individual employed. Okay, so that's, again, that's kind of my spiel from the high level. I'll pause and we can have a bit of a conversation, and I'll answer some questions if you would like. And then I got a notebook here full of WIOA plans that I can bore you all to death with about a lot of our real nitty-gritty and sort of in the weeds things that we're working on. But before I do that, let's just pause for a second and see if anybody has any questions or comments. Yes. Okay. I can, but I was going to say, I believe we have a microphone.
We do. Someone in the back can turn it on. Okay, who's first?
Hi, I'm Vicki. I have a three-part question, really. It's how to help an individual that wants to be an entrepreneur access VR services for like micro enterprises. So the parts of that is, are there coaches who specialize in this? And does the individual have to own 100% of the business when they go for the ownership of the business? And can VR pay for, if there's specialized training needed for the coach to communicate with the client, a specialized communication system? I'm not really talking about assistive tech, so to speak. It's a different communication method. So in order for the coach to help the client, they have to communicate with them, right? And then how does that all work? How do we access VR for that particular micro enterprise service?
Sure.
Thank you.
Great questions, and I think the answer to most, if not all of those questions is yes, we can and do that. The only one I'm not 100% certain on is the 100% ownership piece, but we can think about that and consult with some of the self-employment experts that we have at VR. But yes, that is, I think, an emerging employment outcome or desired employment outcome. I think it can be an incredibly good fit for many individuals with disabilities. Yes, we can provide those support services to foster that communication, and yes, there are vendors who specialize in working with individuals on self-employment, as we call it. It's, entrepreneurship, self-employment. I will say that it's not for everyone, and there's a strong desire that we as Americans, I think, have to go out there and be an entrepreneur and have our own business, and that's admirable, and I encourage it 100%, with the caveat that, again, it's not for everyone, and that we know that many small businesses struggle. It's, an individual might have a skill. For example, if I were still practicing law actively, I might be a really good lawyer, but a crummy business person. And so I might not do a very good job with managing if I were trying to be a sole practitioner. And that's just one example. Now, of course, those can be overcome, and there are supports. People can bring supports to the table that can assist them in their business. And again, VR does provide that technical assistance through a specialized consultant that helps them to work through a series of benchmarks, really, to determine whether the idea is viable for the business and to help them develop a business plan. So I think it requires an awful lot of patience for the individual to be able to go through it. I don't think those move rapidly, I will say. But I also think that we've seen some incredible outcomes. We've had some individuals who have done wonderful things through our self-employment process. And so, yes, that's an option that certainly can be explored as an employment goal. So we call them, here's another acronym I'll throw at you, CBTACs. And that's Certified Business Technical Assistance Consultant, I believe. And those folks can be connected through the VR counselor. The VR counselor, just like with every other service, it's that informed choice piece. So you would get a list, presumably, of the consultants, the CBTAC in your area or region, and then you would be able to learn about them through your own research and with the assistance of a counselor, and choose the one that was the best fit for you. And yeah, so that's how that works. It's really like any other service. Any of our VR folks have any comments or anything to add to that? 51%, okay. I told you I'm learning new stuff every day, y'all. It's great. Yes, right here. Yes.
I did personally use VR for my training in California, and I did start like an entrepreneur, own business. I was a parent special ed advocate for 24 years in California, and now I'm here with disability rights. So it does change those goals, right? You start, and VR was amazing, helping me with training and education. So I do believe in it firmly, because I lived it, right? But here I noticed, and I have a question for you about transition to post-secondary in high school. What I noticed is that VR is not really involved, at least in my experience, when I go to those IEPs, and I wonder if you knew, is there something that we're trying to do to kind of educate or trying to involve a little bit more in that transition in the IEPs?
Sure. Well, great questions, and I'm really glad that our colleagues in California helped you. I've had a chance to meet some of those folks, and they're doing great work out there. Yes, we do want to be involved in that process, and I may rely on our staff here who are the experts in that area. But yes, I think it is absolutely a focus of VR to assist that population. I think we're not, as a matter of right, we're not included in those meetings. I think we would have to be asked and be able to participate in those. And yes, we can continue to improve those relationships. I think we see in certain counties or school districts, those bonds are stronger than others. And we've identified some areas where we need to improve those relationships. Because I think, again, as we've said, it's all about that communication and those relationships and building those. So yes, I think that goes hand in hand with our renewed focus on serving those individuals before they get out of high school. I've had some conversations with folks here about how daunting it is for everyone to go off to college or to a new educational environment and to be on your own and to have to advocate for yourself. And so that's really the point, I think, of a lot of these skills and these services that we're providing, is to get those skills built early on and reduce that stress and that challenge for those individuals. Yes, ma'am. Oh, right here, okay.
I was wondering, I know you had mentioned previously about being able to help students. So per se, somebody is coming from an undergraduate degree, but in order to receive better employment, they need to get a master's degree or a Juris Doctorate or a doctoral degree for the program that they want to do. In what ways can VR help support students who want to receive that education? Do they help pay for like GRE testing, LSAT testing, or help pay? I know you talked about textbooks, but I was wondering if you also help pay for the testing or those kinds of programs.
So VR is permitted by law and does assist individuals with graduate level training and with employment goals that require that. And so for you, if that's something you're looking to do, first of all, congratulations, because that's awesome and a really good goal to have. As with any service, it has to be determined between the individual and their counselor that it's appropriate, that it's not setting someone up for failure, and that kind of training is necessary for them to reach that agreed upon goal. But when they do that, then yes, those services can be provided. I'm not 100% sure on the testing. There's something that. We get creative where we can. Our folks are great at thinking up solutions outside of the box. But that's a great point, Brandy, and something that I should point out is that it's a bit of a unique system with all of the service providers that we have. They become registered, they're vetted, they have background screening, so we make sure that they're qualified to provide the kinds of services they provide. But so Pearson, for example, is a good example. We can't pay a vendor unless they have gone through that process and elected to be a vendor of VR. And a company like that may say, no thanks, I'm not interested in going through that process. And so that's when we have to get creative and think about ways that we can get that accomplished. But it is certainly something that can be achieved, and again, my hat's off to you if you're looking to move in that direction. That's exciting. Yes.
Hi, my son is almost 25. He's in college. VR is paying for it. It's been great. He's doing well. So his goal is in IT, and he has autism. One of the things I've been requesting, he has a job coach. They said they will only help him if he gets a job in the IT field. Well, he's still at that level of entry-level jobs. It's actually really hard for him to get one. He had one that I found for him. His VR counselor and his job coach convinced him to quit that job so he can get an internship in the IT field, which was, in theory, a great idea. He's in Gainesville, Florida, very tiny. that place closed after 3 weeks, and now we're going on 4 months, and he still doesn't have a job. And I've been having a very heated discussion with his VR counselor saying, we need support at an entry level. And he said, well, then we have to rewrite his whole plan, and he can't go to college. I know that's not correct. I'm just trying to understand the language to use with him. He's a great counselor. I'm not trying to say anything bad, but I feel like there's a disconnect there that
Sure.
Can they help him with job support, even if it's not in that field, so he can gain those employment skills till he can get to that, till he graduates and has that credential? Or am I misunderstanding that?
No, I think, great questions and indicative of some of the kind of tough challenges that we face, right? Because everything is reliant on that plan. We cannot, by law, deviate from that and say, we're going to provide you XYZ service over here that has nothing to do with your employment goal as documented on that plan. So that's something where we do have to be pretty much by the book and a little bit rigid, I think. So I understand where perhaps the counselor is coming from. I think what I would recommend is a continued communication and dialogue to see if you can't come to some sort of compromise on that. I apologize for the way that has worked out, because sometimes the best intentions lead to a negative outcome like that. I think I can say that VR was trying to do the right thing there, and it may just have not worked out in this instance. So I would hate to see deviating from that plan if he truly does wish to continue on that IT path and with college as a necessary support. But I would encourage you to continue to work with your counselor and see if you can kind of come to some sort of resolution on, can we amend the plan in such a way that provides for some kind of temporary relief, but allows him to keep up with the ultimate goal. But that being said, again, it can always live and grow and breathe, and he could get a job temporarily if that becomes the most important priority, and then he could come back in X amount of time and say, okay, now I'm ready to make that next leap and have that IPE for the more advanced training. So I think there are a few options. I think it's just we probably need to get past the back and forth on, no, we can't do this, we can't do that, and really, okay, well, what can we do? What are some creative solutions here? And I'm encouraged that you seem to have a good relationship with the counselor, and that ombudsman piece is always a good third sort of set of eyes to look at something and maybe offer some creative solutions as well. So that might be something to consider. But yes, keep trying and keep persevering, because I know that we can reach a good outcome there. It's statewide, and so you can reach them through our website, which is rehabworks.org. There's a section for the ombudsman. There's a toll-free number that you can call. You can also email them, and they're really great about getting back in touch with people right away, because that's all they do, and they're very good at it.
Before I begin, I just want to apologize if I offend anybody, but our daughter was born in '82, which makes her 39. And when she was in high school, the job training program that they had for her was, first it was bagging dinner rolls at Publix. The next job they got that they could use her for was sorting out items at CVS that were out of date, taking them off the shelf for them. But because of the wheelchair, they only could do the one row, and so there was no transitional job skills for that. Now she's 39, has never been on a job interview. No counselors here. We were in California again for 5 years. They couldn't do it either. Nobody has jobs that are for people with learning disabilities and in a wheelchair, but that are high functioning. And I need to know if you guys can address that.
Absolutely. So first of all, my apologies for that situation having occurred and continuing to occur. I think the good news from my perspective is I believe that we as a society are moving in a better direction on that front, and that's part of the kind of training that I was talking about earlier that we need to give businesses and get them educated, that these folks are talented, they have skills, and they bring something to the table as employees, okay? And so I think also that if VR, whether in California or here, has failed up to this point to do a better job for your daughter, that doesn't mean that we have to continue doing the same things and getting the same bad outcomes. We can do better, and I pledge to you that we will do better. I don't know if she has a current case that's going on. Let's talk after this, and I'll get your information, and we'll get that squared away. Thank you.
Hi, my question is to kind of touch on like what she was just speaking of. My son graduated high school maybe 2 years ago. We tried to transition into their vocational program at the school. He struggled because for him mentally, he still wanted that classroom setting and not that vocational. So what I'm asking is the VR, because he's intellectually disabled, nonverbal, so he's not reading, not writing, is there anything that the VR can do for him or place him? Because like right now, I'm working from home, thankfully, but all he does all day is just, sits home and watch TV, but I want so much more, but I know that his capabilities are within a small, so is there something that the VR can, I don't, and forgive me for saying this, I don't have, soaring expectations, but I just don't want him just sitting at home in front of a television, 10 hours a day for the rest of, his life.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, first of all, thank you for sharing and for wanting, something better for him. That's a challenging situation, but I think it's one that VR faces pretty regularly. And I see some folks here eager to weigh in on that, and these are the experts. So
One thing would be like the discovery service that we have that can help you and so many other people. Also to kind of, not just the Ombudsman Office, there's a chain of command at those offices. There's a unit supervisor that, can probably assist you if you're not getting anywhere with your counselor.
Any individual who has been determined eligible for VR services and doesn't have a clear idea of how they're going to move forward with an employment goal and has some significant limitations or has not been very successful in prior attempts at employment, we have a program called, or a process called Discovery, where a trained individual works with these individuals with disabilities to discover, literally, the talents and abilities that these individuals have in multiple settings. Because sometimes in school, this behavior is not a common behavior, so you don't see it. That does not mean it's not an employable skill. Sometimes there are roles and activities that these individuals are doing in churches, in social settings, in all kinds of different places where all of a sudden a light bulb goes off and you go, oh my goodness, this could be a job. And that's how our discovery process works. And for our even more significant disabilities, that's where our customized employment, and then even going into self-employment, we have these levels to look at where each individual's skills and abilities and